Welcome to Lineups, Locks, and Loot, where we're just three dads in a basement drinking beer, talking sports. Episode 17 focuses on your fantasy lineups, week 16 DFS, and your betting locks with some garbage time at the end. I am Nick Dadig, along with Ryan Pettit and Matt Dubmig Hillwig. For our first-time listeners, reasons to tune in. I added up the stats cumulatively throughout the season. And right now we have placed 12 of 14 of our DFS lineups in the $1 Million Maker as cash lineups. ATS, I'm currently on a 6-1 streak over the last 7. In teasers, Pettit's up 520%. I'm up 802%. Each week, our touchdown score of the week, we're up 897% collectively as a group. If you're more along the lines of betting props, then listen to what Mig has to say later on. He's up 949%. Hey guys, welcome back. Three of us back together again. I think it's the first time in 3 weeks. Christmas right around the corner. What do you guys want this year for Christmas? Let's talk sports.
Well, I already got everything I wanted, so go ahead, Pettit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had an answer for this until you said, let's talk sports.
Well, what do you want for Christmas generally?
I want to never go and see Santa Claus with my kid again. I went tonight. Did you go to the one in Dilley, Mig?
We didn't this year. We did last year. They were too young to know what's going on, so it was okay. But
we went, and it said it was going to be inside, so I was like, all right, it'll be warm. So the whole line you have to wait outside, and I was probably in the line for an hour and 25 minutes or something, just freezing my balls and my toes off. My toes are still cold. Balls might be too. I don't know. But oh my goodness. And then she was scared of Santa, so she didn't even sit in his lap. So never want to do that again. But I learned that I'm doing it Friday. So I got that going for me.
And for the next, I don't know, 8 years of your life?
Yeah. Well, it'd be better if it's inside and the kid actually is excited about sitting on Santa's lap.
How about you, Mig? You said you got everything you want already?
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about sports, I did. And, I'll start out to say I don't like to see anybody lose their job, but Brandon Staley got what he had coming to him. After my Chargers ran a couple weeks ago, the wheels kind of fell off. Herbert's on IR. Keenan Allen missed a game here or there. And yeah, Brandon Staley got fired. So someone in the organization woke up, realized it wasn't working. I'd like to think it was me who really set them on the right path, but we all know that's not true. But yeah, I don't know. I think like for me personally, I don't really want anything for Christmas anymore. I mean, now that they have kids, I just want, I'm excited for them to they're a year and a half now, and I'm just excited for them to start to get into the swing of Christmas and make it all about them, act like a kid again. So I really don't want anything. I just want my kids to enjoy their Christmas. Wholesome, I know.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to say that, but I was exactly going to say word for word what you said. I only care about my kid, and I definitely don't want this podcast to take off for Christmas. But sports-wise, I would like my star players to be star players, specifically Austin Ekeler and Cooper Kupp. It's 3 teams have my 4 in the semifinals right now, and Cooper Kupp's on 2 of those. The last 3 games are a sign of things to come. Hopefully, I get what I want for Christmas, and the old Cooper's back. What do we have this week for our listener question of the week?
We've got a few listener questions of the week. Before I get into it, you can submit your listener question of the week at Just3Dads on X. Get those questions in so we can get them answered for you. I know we're in the thick of fantasy playoffs right now, so if you're fortunate enough to make it to the second round, we'll answer some questions about that this week. And if you're fortunate enough to make it to championship week, we'd be glad to help you then too. But our first question, which is a 4-parter here from our good pal Brez for Prez 2024. It's all Steelers based. So as we've said before, we're all from around the Pittsburgh area. So the Steelers are near and dear to our heart. So let's talk about them a little bit. Brez asks, question number one, will the Steelers make the playoffs? Nick, what do you think?
Uh, so as a Steeler fan, I'll say yes, but as a sports podcaster, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say no. I think they take this week against the Bengals, but after that, I don't know. When you have a third string quarterback, the third string quarterback is Mason Rudolph. The Steelers are just falling apart at the seams, and I don't see the path they do make the playoffs. How about you, Pettit?
I'm going to say no. I don't think they're going to win any of the next 3 games. I think it's the run here this season's over, and I think as a Steelers fan, you're probably better off losing the next 3 games. I know I'm a pessimistic sports person, but I just don't see the point of making the first round of playoffs and getting smacked. Is it just hope or something? I don't get it.
Do you remember when we did with Ben Roethlisberger? We got in with a fluke, and I think we had to play the Chiefs first round, and he basically said like, "Hey, it's great to make the playoffs, but we don't stand a chance of winning." I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, they got
I do.
crushed.
Tried the reverse Belichick strategy, talk up your opponent and then try and beat him. But yeah, it happened exactly how he said it would. But I agree with both of you. I do not think the Steelers make the playoffs, and I think they are better served not making the playoffs. I can't remember. I think the highest pick they've had in the last handful of years was when they traded up to, I think it was 10th overall to take Devin Bush, which turned out to be a bad trade. But as far as an earned draft position, they haven't been below, I think, 15 in a long time. And you hear quite a bit. You draft middle, finish middle, stay middle. You never go anywhere. And that's kind of, since the heyday of the Killer Bees, even though that team never really won anything, that's kind of where the Steelers have been. And I think they're better off, trying to build up draft stock and get the best pick that they can.
Maybe get their coach fired.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder if it's time. Like, if I'm going to be a Yinzer and sit here and talk to you, I'm done with Tomlin. Regardless of how he is as a coach and who he is, I think at this point it's time. There hasn't been any progress, and I saw a stat the other day that the Steelers have won in the last handful of years. The Steelers have won as many playoff games as the Pirates, and the Pirates are the laughing stock of the MLB and have been for, the better part of 30 years. So, if that really tells you what Mike Tomlin's tenure has been like, it hasn't been as great as it is always made out to be. Yeah, the never having a losing record, but what does that matter when it's 9-7, now 9-8, that there's an extra game every year or something close to that.
Yeah,
but
I know
that's what I think they should do. And I'll say what they will do is probably just that. They are in complete disarray. The wheels have fallen off the defense, whether that's, I don't know the reason. Maybe they've just been on the field too much all year. And that's been kind of their saving grace all year was their defense. The offense has been worse other than that one outlier game, the game after they fired Matt Canada. Now that Kenny's out, Mitch came in, performed very poorly, and I don't expect much from Mason either. So, yeah, not looking good for the Steelers.
Yeah, I think too that if a head coaching job opens up for the Steelers, there's like 14 head coaches get fired every year. But I would imagine if you were the best candidate, the Steelers would be on top of your list. I don't think they'll pay you as much, but you get the job for 15 years, you're not going to get fired after one. So
good job security with the Steelers.
Yeah.
That too. And I mean, they are a storied franchise. There's granted the team's gotten a little bit away from that, but there's a history with the team, and it's kind of a mantra of the team that they're tough, physical, good hometown, hard-nosed franchise. And they've been the same way for since 1933 when the organization came to be. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if, yeah, like you said, I think anybody who's available would have the Steelers up there on their list. So that was the first question. The next one is, if you haven't heard, Steelers third string quarterback Mason Rudolph is getting the start this weekend against the Browns. Brez asks, what are your expectations for Mason Rudolph? Pettit, what do you think?
Well, I want to start off by saying I was reading today and somebody was equating this to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and saying how everybody made fun of him, but now Santa needs him to lead the sleigh. I was like, this is just perfect timing. But I think I don't think it could be worse than Trubisky, and I don't know. I mean, I guess you could be a lot worse than Kenny, as the biscuit showed, but uh, I I wouldn't be surprised if he's equal to better than Kenny, or at least in between him and Trubisky. So I think I I kind of have high hopes for it, though. I admittedly forget his first run with us.
Yeah,
So I
go ahead, Data.
when I look at it, so this game will be a true tell. So it's home field advantage against the Cincinnati Bengals, whose defense has been really struggling. I pulled up the stat here that over the last 4 weeks, the Bengals have gave up the most passing yards in the NFL. So this is the perfect matchup for Mason Rudolph to prove his worth, which we know from previous experiences is not much. So I don't. If he does not throw for over 200 yards, then you have your tell right there that it's not going to be a successful year for Mason Rudolph. The next week, they travel to Seattle, then they travel to Baltimore, like two way tougher matchups. So if there's no ceiling against the worst pass defense right now, then yeah, I lost all hope for the Steelers season this year. It might be time to start watching the Penguins, although rumor has it they're not doing too well either.
They're not. Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with both of you. I'll play it two ways. For the optimistic Steeler fan, the book on Mason Rudolph since he's been drafted was that he's got a big arm, and he does have a big. I mean, we've seen it, fail a few times in his tenure a few years ago when he was the starter when Ben got hurt.
How's his hand size?
Bigger than Kenny's. I cannot confirm that, but yeah, he's a pretty big dude too. I think he's bigger than both Mitch and Kenny. But regardless of that, I mean, yeah, the book on him is he has a big arm, poor pocket presence, which we've seen. I mean, I remember, I think I want to say he started maybe 8 or 10 games before he got hurt a couple of years ago. And his biggest flaw was not knowing when to either get out of the pocket or get rid of the ball. So if we see a little bit more of that, the pressure that the Bengals can put on this weekend, it'll be bad news. But like I said, I'm talking about the optimistic Steeler fan right now. I think it may give the team an opportunity to stretch the field and, maybe keep George Pickens happy, let him run a few routes over 3 to 5 yards, which he publicly stated he can't produce when he's only running routes that short. But at the same time, we expected all these changes after Canada was fired to the offense. And yeah, the first game there were a few changes. They did stretch the field a little bit, but never with any consistency or success. So I don't have, he's a third string quarterback. I don't have any expectations for him. I think that's the best way to go into the weekend looking at the game, is just not have any expectations, because he's a third string quarterback for a reason. But at the same time, he was drafted. He was pretty darn good in college. So there's something there. What is it? We'll find out on Saturday. So anything else to comment on Mason? All right. Part 3, Brez asks, does Kenny Pickett play again this season? What do you think, Nick?
I don't think so. I think it's too much risk, not enough reward. Even if we do win this matchup against the Bengals, right now we're 10th in the running for play, or seeded. We're the 10th seed right now, so we're kind of on the bubble in a sense. But I believe the Bills win. I believe the Texans win, and they just further the gap. So I don't think it's worth extending an injury for Kenny Pickett. So I don't think we see him.
I think if he's healthy, we do see him. What is a high ankle sprain, right? He had surgery.
He had surgery. It was, I don't know if it was a high ankle sprain or it was something. He had the same injury on his opposite ankle in college, and he had the same surgery done on it, from what I hear. I don't remember what the exact
Hmm.
nature of the injury is, but
Did he return in 3 weeks?
I think it was 4 weeks.
Wow.
This is week 3, right? Yeah, I mean, if is there any kind of lingering thing, like if he's even questionable, I don't think he plays. But if they deem him ready and all that, I think he plays. Especially, I don't think you're risking anything because you're risking,
Right.
half a trash bag, so we'll be fine.
Maybe
I
a good
think if you,
excuse to draft a quarterback again.
yeah,
Or sign
yeah. I mean,
Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett.
right.
Kirk
But
Cousins.
I don't
I
want
think
half
there
an
are a couple.
Achilles.
He's talking about coming back for the Super Bowl. Did you hear that today? Kirk Cousins?
His wife said that.
Well, either way, he's Vikings coming back to the Super Bowl. Kirk is going to play in it. But as far as Kenny goes, I think there are a couple scenarios where you could see him play. If somehow the Steelers win the next 2 games and it puts them in the mix for the wild card and he's at least 80-85% ready, I think we see Kenny, unless Mason comes in and lights it up. I don't foresee any
So
of
we
that
might see
happening.
Kenny.
Right. Yeah, I don't really see any of that happening, but the Steelers just they do crazy things. They win when they're not supposed to. And they do it in the most ugly way possible. But they always find themselves in positions they shouldn't be in, whether it's losing to 2-10 teams or, being in a playoff spot with having like the worst offense in the league. I think if they're smart, he doesn't see the field again this year. Saying what you said, Pettit, I don't disagree with you as far as Kenny's value, but I think the way the Steelers look at it is he's their guy for the next couple of years. As long as he's under contract, they're going to give him every opportunity to be that guy, and see what they have in him. So I think if they're looking at it from that mindset, there's no point in playing him this year because, the Bengals are starting to play well. Joe Flacco's revived the Browns, and the Ravens are running away with the division. So I really don't see much of a chance for us to get in anyway, even if we do win 1 or 2 of the next couple of games. So I would say more than likely, no, we do not see Kenny for the end of the year.
Real quick, you reminded me. I saw 2 stats today. First one was the Flacco's already thrown for more touchdowns this season. I think he did it last week than Pickett.
Yeah, he did.
And then the other one was that Raheem Mostert has the same amount of touchdowns as the Steelers as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Real cool. Love that. It's my favorite.
I'm moving to Miami.
And all right. So the last part of Brez's question here: Should
There's
the
another
Steelers?
part.
There is. This is the last part. Should the Steelers consider drafting a quarterback within the next few years? What do you think, Pettit?
Well, Kenny's last year as a Steeler will probably be next year because I doubt they give him the 5th-year option unless he gets a lot better. But I don't. It depends on what the record is. If they keep picking 15th overall, they're never going to get a good quarterback, or they're going to have to miss 2 more times before they hit.
Right.
So they either have to be really bad for a year or sign one of these proven veteran guys, like I mentioned earlier. What do you think, Dadig?
I don't think they draft another quarterback. Their team is young-ish, and so if they wave the towel on Kenny Pickett, I think there's enough veterans out there. Like Kyler Murray might hit the free agent market. Kirk Cousins, people like that for next year. Will they sign a quarterback next year? Absolutely not. But people like that will continue to pop up. So I don't think they're going to try to grow a quarterback again. I think lesson learned with Pickett. You struck gold with Roethlisberger, so lightning doesn't strike twice.
Yeah. I don't see them drafting a quarterback either within the next couple of years, and I don't really know beyond this year what the quarterback classes are going to look like. This year would, I think, be the year to probably draft a quarterback. You have Drake May, you have Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, who just won the Heisman. Again, you never know if any of those guys are going to be viable options, but it does seem to be a pretty deep quarterback class. And I will say they are definitely not going to draft a quarterback this year because of what I said earlier. I think they invested a first round pick in Kenny. Clearly it hasn't worked out yet, but I don't feel like they have seen enough to where they can cut ties with Kenny. And you're not going to spend another first round pick on a quarterback to come in and compete with Kenny. You're going to either let him be the guy or let him walk when his contract's up. So my gut feeling is no, they will not draft another quarterback.
I think they might be able to. Speaking of the quarterback talent this upcoming draft, because there's in quarterbacks they always like put that tier up there. So they'll say like there's 3 top tier quarterbacks, and then once they go, then no other teams ever grab the next tier till the 3rd and 4th round and whatnot. So maybe they sign one of these veterans and then draft a guy in the 4th round. And now
Yeah.
there are good quarterbacks deep in the draft as you see somebody pop up every year. So
Right.
just draft 3 of them, cut 2 of them
Yeah.
in a
Right. Yeah. But I agree that, you got to find your Tommy Maddox to get to get through until you draft your Ben Roethlisberger.
row.
So I don't know.
Is there a 9th leg to Prez for Prez 24's question?
There is not. That is all Brez has. I'll tell him next week to have a few more on there. But we do have one more listener question. We had quite a few this week, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to everybody. Brez kind of stole the thunder there with his long monologue of questions. But the next one I want to read should be a quick discussion here. Fatty Matty 12 asks us RB2 carousel. So I'm assuming this is who to start. Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, Jonathan Taylor, Zeke, Brian Robinson, and Tajay Spears. What would be the preferred option here? Nick, what do you think?
So knee-jerk reaction. If we're looking for just one start, I would go with Kenny 3 stacks. So was first game back, maybe second. So against the Eagles, 19 carries, 86 yards, and touchdown. He looked great, and their schedule ahead isn't too bad. Like, yeah, they got the Titans, who are known to be able to stop the run, but they're starting to turn into Swiss cheese here. Then the Seahawks got the Steelers, who we just discussed, falling apart at the seams. So that's your fantasy playoffs. And then if for some reason your commissioner's terrible and he has a week 18 in your playoffs, they got the Cardinals at the end of the year. So I'm liking KW3, and then second in line, Aaron Jones. So I fortunately do not have Aaron Jones, so I didn't have to go through the struggles of owning him. But he seems to be healthy now, and he got the Panthers this week. I do believe they're the worst rush defense right now. Then they got the Vikings for the championships. The Vikings are a good run defense. However, Aaron Jones is more of a reception type back rather than your between the tackles runners. So I do like those two. Jonathan Taylor, too risky for me. Zeke, Ramon J. Stevens starting to trend towards playing. I don't think he plays this week. Brian Robinson, I don't know. I don't think he's suiting up this week either. And Tajay Spears with the split backfield with Derrick Henry. I like those two first, Aaron Jones and KW3. How about you, Pettit?
I think if JT plays, I would start him. Moss hasn't looked good these past few weeks. He got hurt last week, though Trey Sermon looked good. But I think if JT's healthy, he'll still get most of the carries. And I also like Ken Walker too. I'm out on Aaron Jones the rest of my life, and the rest of these people on this list are potentially injured and/or Tajay Spears, who doesn't get enough touches. So going JT 1, then Ken Walker 2. How about you, Meg?
Yeah, I like both those guys as well, JT and Ken Walker. Obviously I don't know who your RB1 is. But yeah, I mean, JT coming back after an injury is a little bit scary, but I do think he is the option. And I do think that Ken Walker is now listed as questionable coming into this week. I didn't see anything other than the last drive of that game. The Drew Lock miracle Tom Brady like drive. But Ken Walker didn't play at all. It was Zach Charbonnet. So I wasn't able to see if he was actually injured, what happened, if they just had Charbonnet in that package, whatever the case was. So keep an eye on Ken Walker. But if Ken Walker does play, I would go with him for this week. And if JT has a big week, I think you go with JT for the championship week if you make it there. But either of those two guys, I don't really think you could go wrong if they're both playing at the top of their abilities. Yeah, and I agree with Pettit. The rest of the guys you said, just leave them on your bench. Aaron Jones has scarred far too many people. But anyway, Fatty Matty, thanks for submitting your question. Again, you can submit your listener question of the week at Just Three Dads on X. Get them in. We'll answer them for the playoffs, and it doesn't have to just be about fantasy. Ask about your bets. Ask about anything. We'll answer it for you. We've got all the answers. What do we have next, Nick?
The next section is called "Can You Trust Them?" With an exclamation mark and a question mark. So throughout this fantasy season, we've seen the ups and downs of players, and then there's high expectations for some, or no expectations, and players starting to heat up late in the year. So if you are fortunate enough to be in the semifinals with the finals 1 week away, you might have some of these players on your roster. Can you trust them? So the first one I have is James Conner. So he performed pretty well against his last opponent there, 49ers. But how do you feel about him rest of the season? Can you trust him?
I think you can. They've been pretty bad all year, but when he's played, he's been somewhat consistent. And since he came in and really stuck it to the Steelers, he's been pretty good. And now that Kyler's back in the fold, that kind of changes defenses' mindsets because of his capabilities. So I think it opens up more for Conner. I think you can trust him. What do you think, Pettit?
Yeah, I trust him in like a flex role. I don't know if I'd ever want him in my RB1 or 2, but it seems the Cardinals are spreading the carries around just a little bit more than they used to, or he should just be Conner all the time. But DeMarco scored a long touchdown, and now they have Michael Carter, who I always liked, and he's getting some touches too. So Conner will still probably get the red zone and the goal line touches. So I think that touchdown potential is enough to make me feel confident in him. What do you got, Dadig?
Against the Bears, so this week, yeah, I think this is a great start for James Conner, and probably enough to get your confidence sky high in him. And then they face the Eagles for the championship week of fantasy football, and in that case, he would be sitting on my bench for the reasons you just mentioned right there. I think it's going to be difficult to run the ball against the Eagles, and DeMarcado and Michael Carter seem to be taking a lot of third down work and receiving roles, if you will. So I don't know how many goal line carries they'll have against Philly. So I would trust him this week, but next week, not so much. Next person I have on my list is Cooper Kupp. Pettit, can you trust him?
Yeah, I'm all in on Cooper Kupp. He had a big game the last 3 weeks, I think. 20 plus points in fantasy. Looks like a mold self. He gets more of Stafford's attention, which it really only boils down to who Stafford wants to throw to most of the time or in crucial situations. So I'm all in. How about you, Dadig?
Uh yeah, I'm in on him, and I'm skeptical. It's almost like a blind date. You don't know. The pictures look great, and the idea of it seems fantastic, and then you show up and it's not what it seems. So I'm really worried about that type of scenario with Cooper Kupp. Like you mentioned, last 3 games he had 8 or more targets and a touchdown each of those 3. But I did see him against the Ravens. He had a monster game, but it seemed like a lot of the passes were fluky, like Stafford throwing off his back foot and Kupp just happened to be there. It didn't seem like they're in rhythm. He just got lucky a few times. And I think his one grab against the Commanders was 67 yards or something like that. That really juiced his stats. So it seems good in theory, and I'm hoping it's true because, as I mentioned, he's in 2 of my semifinals. But yeah, I am going to trust him, and I do have him locked in for this Thursday game. How about you, Mig?
Yep. You said it all. He's Cooper Kupp. I mean, you know what he's capable of. He's starting to show signs of it. I think you have to ride him because, he was more than likely one of your highest draft picks. I think you got to go with him.
Next person, Terry McLaurin. Mig, I'll stick with you.
Nope. I don't trust Terry because I don't trust the Commanders. I mean, Sam Howell can sling it, but you've seen he's spread the ball around quite a bit. I mean, Dotson's had big games. Curtis Samuel's been really good lately. Terry's had a couple good weeks, especially recently, but at the same time, I just don't trust that offense enough to really trust Terry. And I think if you're starting Terry, he's either a wide receiver 2 or a flex. As a flex option, yeah, maybe. Depends on who your other 2 receivers are you're going to start. But I would go ahead and say no. I'm not going to trust Terry. What about you, Edit?
Yeah, I don't trust him either, mainly because I don't trust the quarterbacks. Though it looks like Brissett might start the next game because Hal got benched or hurt. I forget which one. I think benched, but it's kind of a blowout, so maybe that's why. But if Brissett starts, it'll look up for him. But I don't trust anything. That team's just waiting to fire their whole staff at the end of the year and start over.
Yeah, the Commanders are a hot mess. I never seen a team come out and say at the end of the year we're gonna fire our head coach. Like they said it like halfway through the season, like, and then they get rid of their 2-star defensive players. Uh, but they did come out and say Sam Howell's the starter, but they're playing the Jets in New York, and I believe the minute he throws an interception, he might get benched. In which case, we'll see what Brissett does against the Jets. Then I might actually trust McLaurin against 49ers, assuming that there'll be a negative game script. But that'll be the only scenario, really. How about Rashee Rice, Pettit?
Yeah, I trust him. He had a big game last week, 9 receptions, I think, which much more than he usually does, and he still scores touchdowns all the time. So I'm in on Rice. What do you got, Meg?
Yeah, I do trust Rashee Rice. I think he's the clear second option to Kelsey. I just keep thinking about Kadarius Toney and what he's done to that team. So yeah, I think his volume might not increase from last week. That may be a fluke, but if he's seeing 7 to 10 targets a game, he's been pretty reliable. So yeah, I trust Mahomes in that offense to kind of figure it out. They haven't been what they've usually been, but they're trending up right now, and I think Rice is actually one of the biggest reasons why. So I would trust him.
I am envious of anyone that has Rashee Rice. So they got the Raiders this week, and for betting reasons, I looked up the history of those two. In the last 6 games they faced each other, the Chiefs scored 30 or more points. And the only 2 people that could, well, I guess 3 now that Pacheco's not hurt, but so you got Pacheco, Kelsey, and Rice. Those 3 are the only people who are going to score for that team. And if you're putting up 30 points against the Raiders, then it's looking good for your semifinals. And then next week he faces off against the Bengals, who are giving up the most passing yards over the last 4 weeks. So I'm loving Rice, and I wish I had him on something, but I don't. How about Baker Mayfield, Big?
Yeah, if you were, I think if you are forced to play Baker Mayfield, you are the victim of one of the unfortunate quarterback injuries. But I do like Baker Mayfield. He's been pretty good recently. He's I like to call him like the poor man's Brett Favre. He's a gunslinger. He's not afraid to throw it deep. He's got a lot of good weapons, and I think it's a really good fit for him in Tampa. But he's been solid for fantasy purposes. So if you have to go with him, yeah, I like Baker. Pettit, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's like QB 14 in the year, which isn't very good. But with injuries and their soft upcoming schedule, I'm a Baker believer. I've been starting to think recently how much better the Browns, how much better position they'd be in if they just kept Baker and all those draft picks and all that money.
Makes you think.
I'll
What
have to
about
be
you,
on
Nick?
the opposite. I'll have to be on the opposite side of the fence for this one.
Zach.
It's yeah, I did have him in one league, which I did not make playoffs. But in any case, yeah, I do like their schedule. I do like Buccaneers games because their pass defense is porous and it just turns into a shootout a lot of times. But looking into him a little further, like I noticed the previous 2 games before this 381 yard, 4 touchdown, he threw for 48.3% exactly in both games. Against Atlanta and Carolina, he was 14 of 19 passing, exactly both games. And before that, he had 199 yards passing. And before that, he had a decent. He's just so up and down, hot and cold. And I just don't know what to make of him. So in something as serious as a fantasy football playoff, I want something a little more consistent or a good matchup play before I settle with Baker Mayfield. The last person I had on my list was Jalen Waddle, another person I don't have on any team, but I did target very early in the season. What do you think about Jalen Waddle, Pettit?
Yeah, I just realized I'm looking at ESPN and I was looking at the future schedule for Baker, and it was actually it said Baker Mayfield had a picture of Devonta Smith, and it was giving me Devonta Smith's schedule. So, yeah, Baker's schedule actually isn't good. I take that back.
Oh, Jacksonville's a good matchup. The Saints are good against the pass, but you're going to play in a dome with the Saints, so it's not too bad.
Yeah. Julio and Waddle.
I'm still wrapping my head around how Devonta Smith showed up for Baker Mayfield.
You start sorting stuff on that app, it'll do stuff like that.
But yes, Jalen Waddle.
Um, yeah, I'm a believer in Waddle. If Tyreek plays, then he's no longer going to be the focal point and have as big of game. But hopefully, this little stint of Tyreek being out made them realize they should feed him it a little bit more. But I like him as a flex or a wide receiver 3 if you're in that kind of league. How about you, Nick?
I don't trust him. Like I said, I had 20 best ball leagues this year, and I had him in a lot of them. And he was really disappointing. He has 5 straight games with 8 or more targets, and only one of those he had over 100 yards, and that was against the Jets that you just saw with Tyreek Hill absent. He only has 3 100-yard games all season. 2 of them were against the Jets. So for whatever reason, he performs against the Jets specifically. And what I read on Tyreek Hill today is like he did not practice, but they basically said it's just resting him up. So he's full steam ahead in his next matchup. How about you, Mig?
Yeah, I don't trust Waddle either. I do have Waddle in a couple of leagues, and I mean Tyreek's been so productive that Waddle hasn't had to be productive. So I think as long as Tyreek plays, then Waddle really can't be trusted because you don't know what you're going to get. The Dolphins' run game's also been extremely good. I mean, I think Mostert leads the league in rushing touchdowns, and Achane has incredible big playability. So that takes away from secondary options too. So if you have to in a flex, I would say sure, go ahead and start him. I mean, he's still going to get his targets, but the only scenario I would consider him a must start is if Tyreek does not play. So overall, I do not trust Waddle.
Do you guys have anyone else you want to bring up?
Yeah, I think you got them all.
Yeah, I don't.
All right, then that would advance us over to our next section, DFS lineups for each week. We make a daily fantasy lineup using DraftKings that has 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex position, and a defense and special teams. We keep stats throughout the year, as I mentioned in the intro. 12 of 14 weeks, we have placed a cash lineup in the $1 Million Maker. If you want to tail us, last week, Mig took the cake. He's on a bit of a heater right here. Pettit won the week before, but points wise, Mig is on fire. So last week he had 157. He was our cash lineup, which brings his win total to 5, with myself at 5 and Pettit at 4. If you want to tail the quarterback position, Pettit's your go-to guy with 19 points per game for the quarterback. At running back, Mig and Pettit are both tied with 16. The wide receiver position is myself with 17. Tight end is Pettit with 16 somehow. And the defense special team has been Mig all year with 9, with the total overall score. Mig leading the pack with an average score of 136. So Mig, why don't you start us off with your quarterback this week?
Guy we just talked about, Baker Mayfield. I like his matchup against the Jaguars this week. You can get him for $6,000 on DraftKings. Yeah, the Jags have been giving up a lot of yards, quarterbacks, and you know, I think Baker's frisky right now, so I like Baker this week. Nick, who do you have?
I also like that game, but I like the other side. And I took Trevor Lawrence. I know. Concussion protocol, but he banged his head and then he went back in the game, and they're saying he's progressing well. So I'm really rolling the dice here, hoping that he is going to clear that protocol because Tampa Bay right now has given up the second most passing yards over the last 4 weeks. And Baker's a great pick too. I mean, if he is down with the concussion, that's probably who I'm going to flex over to is Baker. How about you, Pettit?
I'm taking Geno Smith against the Titans. So it sounds like he's definitely playing and he'll practice all week. So he looks good there. And the Titans, I guess they got a little friskier, but generally a pretty weak pass defense. So I got Geno rolling. 5,800, by the way.
Not
How
scared
about
about Drew Lock's final drive last week.
It's
gonna
ripping the starting job away? Well, about your running back position, Pettit?
I've got Chuba Hubbard against the Packers. Packers are ranked 25th, or no, I'm sorry, 24th against run defense, and Chuba's getting all the touches. So going there, and also Brees Hall. So Brees Hall's a little bit of a nervy pick, but the Jets are playing the Commanders. So I think with two garbage franchises playing each other, it might look like a real game instead of what they usually do. So I think Brees Hall will do well. What do you got, Meg?
I also have Chuba Hubbard. I like him a lot. Yeah, the Packers' run defense has not been great all year, and the only bright spot about that offense in Carolina has been Hubbard so far. So, cheap option at 5,700 went with him. And my second running back is our guy, James Conner. We just talked about him. I do trust him. I like him against the Bears this week. You can get him for $5,900. So yeah, James Conner and Chuba Hubbard. What about you, Nick?
I think there's a lot of good above average price running backs out there this week. I also have Brees Hall. Uh, I kept taking Chuba Hubbard out, putting in Brees Hall for that one, but it's looking like Trevor Simeon's going to start for the Jets, which he's not going to be able to air the ball out. So I'm picturing a lot of dump offs and running plays to Brees Hall. So a lot of volume against a terrible team. Then my other running back, I'm looking for a bounce back game. I took Bijan Robinson.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah, I know. But okay, just look at the surrounding picture here. Arthur Blank comes out and says, "Well, we're gonna make a decision, judging by the last 3 games, on what we're gonna do with Arthur Smith." And then Taylor Heineke comes in. So maybe it's time that Arthur Smith starts using his star players and in a game against the Colts, I like Bijan. I think this is a great bounce back opportunity. It's home field. If there's one game that he's going to go off, it will be this one right here. And so that's who I took. Pettit, who do you have at your wide receiver position?
Meg, can you trust them? Bijan Robinson.
No, Nope. Fucking nope.
My wide receivers, I've got DK Metcalf connected with my Geno pick earlier, so he hasn't lived up to any hype at all this year. But again, Tennessee, I don't love their pass defense, so I think it's DK's time to shine soon. I also got Garrett Wilson for kind of the same logic as I picked Brees Hall. I didn't know that Trevor Simeon was starting, but
It's not announced yet. It's trending that way. It could
okay.
change.
I
Zach-
don't even know if I care. If it,
Zach Wilson's mom said he got a boo boo on his head. He hit his head too hard.
and my
So
last one is Calvin Ridley against the Bucks. Bucks don't have a good pass defense, and Christian Kirk's still out, so I like the Ridley pick. How about you, Dadig?
All right, I went with Mike Evans. He didn't have a monster game last week, but he is a scoring machine. I think this is one of those games where you see 175 yards and 2 touchdowns from Mr. Evans here. Then I have St. Brown. I don't know. I just have a man crush on St. Brown. I think I pick him every week. But so looking at the Lions Vikings games, I can't remember what the numbers were. I have it in my betting section, but the average total is about I want to say 55 points every time they face each other. So that should be a high scoring affair. And then my last wide receiver, I'm honestly surprised you didn't say him. I think he's a steal this week, is Parker Washington, if you even know who he is. But you mentioned Christian Kirk being out. Zay Jones, it's not announced that he's out, but he's not going to play. So that puts Parker Washington in a starting role with the Jaguars against the Buccaneers, and he's only 3,800. So that's who I went with my third wide receiver. How about you, Mig?
So I too had Mike Evans to take as my stack with Baker Mayfield. I just like what he's been doing the last couple of weeks. He seems to be biggest red zone option. Next, I have Brandon Cooks. He's kind of had a resurgence the second half of the year. I look for Dallas's offense to bounce back from what they did against the Bills. It's going to be potential for a shootout, with the Miami game. So it's got to go somewhere else other than CeeDee Lamb all the time for the wide receiver. So I like Cooks, and he's a cheap option. You can get Cooks for 4,900. And then I also took Curtis Samuel. So I think regardless of who's playing for Washington, they're going to look to kind of keep the offense the same. They've thrown the ball quite a bit. If it is Sam Howell, Samuel's been pretty good with him. Good slot option. He had 2 touchdowns last week, I believe. So I'm looking for that trend to keep up. He's also cheap at 4,800. So Brandon Cooks, Mike Evans, and Curtis Samuel.
Meg, can you trust them? Parker Washington.
Nope. I do like Parker Washington, though. I don't know that I would trust him going into fantasy playoffs, but for DFS,
Oh, this
sure.
is for DFS. I would not put him in my fantasy lineup yet. But I'll kick it off with my tight end. So I'm probably late on this gravy chain, but I went with David Njoku. So he's just absolutely on fire right now. DFS wise, put up 29.4 points last week and 27 the week before that. 3.7 the week before that, but then every game after that, he put 10 or more from week 7 on. So he seems pretty consistent. Joe Flacco seems to have eyes for him, and the Texans are giving up the third most receiving yards to tight ends. So I like Njoku in this matchup. I'm hoping he has another big performance, but we shall see. How about you, Mig?
I too have David Njoku. I think the Browns have kind of simplified their offense. If it's not going Cooper's way, it's going Njoku's way. He's been a big part of that since Flacco's been here. So a lot of the same reasons, like David Njoku.
That's a lock.
Oh, there we go.
I think I picked him last week. I might have picked him the week before that, but I'm going to keep riding this gravy train.
So on the note of locks, we didn't really explain it. If all three of us pick the same player, it's a lock. So I keep track of our locks as well, and anything that scores 10 points above expectation, I highlight as a win. And right now, we're 6-2 on locks. So hopefully he does perform 10 points above expectation. That'll be nice for all of us.
And just a note on that, I think one of our locks was Logan Thomas at the tight end position once.
That really brought the average down.
As I say, we all make mistakes, so let's just say we're 6-1 with an asterisk.
Pettit, who do you have at your flex position?
So every week Dating tells me how many points I score at tight end, and I think I'm just going to start picking 2 tight ends. So I'm flexing Evan Ingram in this one.
Oh, I was so torn between him and Njoku.
You should have just picked them both, man. But hopefully Trevor Lawrence plays. and I think Ingram will be getting a lot of targets. I think that they'll probably go to him instead of Parker Washington, so that should help me out.
Nah. Parker Washington, target hog.
How's your boy from Arizona, that wide receiver you pick every week? You been doing
Oh,
pretty good?
dude, I can't believe it. I think he had 3 targets, no catches. I almost put him on lineup again. I was like, there's
Oh
no
my
way he could do that back-to-back weeks.
I think there's a couple receivers that Dating always likes,
Yeah,
and
they're
it's
all
never Marquise Brown. It's always Greg Dortch and who's the other guy, the rookie?
I was
Michael
super high
Wilson,
on Dortch
right?
that
Yeah,
one
Michael
week.
Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson
I-
combined 15 catches on the year.
well, I'll
Make it
just
too
jump into
close.
my flex so there's no spoilers. I don't have him this week.
No, boo.
Yeah, I did. I took him out. He's really cheap. You should know that. But I put in Jonathan Mingo. I'm not thrilled about it, but I couldn't afford much. He is getting targeted a lot. Thielen's productivity's going down, and the Packers' pass defense has been one of the worst. I think bottom 3, and it's in Carolina. So I'm hoping for some kind of, I don't know, 6 or 7 receptions, 50 yards, and maybe a fluke touchdown from him, which I'll take. I don't have high hopes for that, but it's better than Michael Wilson's production from last week. A big zero burger. Who'd we skip over for flex? Mig. What do you got?
Mm-hmm. Pettit, before we start, do you trust him, Jonathan Mingo?
No.
Oh man, you guys better hope I don't win this week.
I don't even remember who I have in my flex. Oh, yeah, I do. DK Metcalf.
I thought you were
I
gonna say
think
Michael Wilson.
No, Dating. I'm good at this. No, I like DK. Regardless of who plays a quarterback, he's the clear number 1 option out there. He had a monster game a few weeks ago, and yeah, they looked his way. I know in the last drive of the Monday night game. Yeah, I think he's starting to see a little bit of an uptick here in production. So I'm just kind of hoping that stays the same. He's a little bit expensive, but I think for the folks I had to choose from, he was the best option. So DK Metcalf.
All right, we'll stick with you. What do you have for your defense special teams?
So I don't like this one as much, but I'm going to count on some turnovers in this game. I went with the New York Jets at $3,100. Their defense hasn't been as advertised as they were at the beginning of the year, but regardless of who starts a quarterback for Washington, they are prone to turnover. So I'm just going to kind of bank on that. If it's Sam Howell, he can come in and throw for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, or he can come in and throw for 150 yards and 3 interceptions. So I'm kind of banking on somewhere in the middle, but yeah, I'm going with the Jets. What about you, Nick?
Pettit? Oh,
Nope.
okay.
Go ahead,
I'll
Pettit. Either way, do whatever you want.
Go ahead, David.
I'll just go so Pettit can make fun of me some more. So when you spend a bunch of money on surefire studs such as Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, you kind of run out of money, and you take the bottom of the barrel Carolina Panthers at home versus the Green Bay Packers. So honestly, I'm kind of pleased that they're only 2,400, and Jordan Love, he's been heating up, but he's prone to turn over the ball as well. So I'm picturing like 6-7 points out of that one. Anyway, Pettit, what do you have?
I'm going to resist that. I think you're just tempting me with these picks now.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna wipe this lineup clean after this and redo my $1 million maker.
I got the Bears playing the Cardinals. So the Bears have been feisty lately, and they're only 2,800, so still a cheap pick, and the Cardinals aren't good. So
Good enough reason. Why don't you take your lineup from the top?
I've got Geno Smith, 5,800, Chuba Hubbard, 5,700, Breece Hall, 6,100, DK Metcalf, 6,700, Garrett Wilson, 5,800, Calvin Ridley, 63, David Njoku, 53, Evan Ingram, 54, and Bears D for 28. How about you, Mig?
I've got Baker Mayfield for 6,000. James Conner, 5,900. Chuba Hubbard for 5,700. Wide receivers are Brandon Cooks for 4,900. Mike Evans for 7,600. Curtis Samuel for 4,800. Tight end is David Njoku for 53. DK Metcalf for 6,700 and Jets defense for 31. Nick,
Quarterback Trevor Lawrence, 6,600. Brees Lightning, 6,100. Bijan, Rookie of the Year Robinson, 6,300. Mike Evans, 7,600. St. Brown, 82. Pro Bowl Washington, 3,800. David Njoku, 5,300. Jonathan Mingo, 36. And the Panthers D at 24. That will roll us over to our next section, against the spread and teasers, where we each pick one team against the spread weekly and to cover the spread, and then follow that up with some teasers, typically 6 point, but we do manipulate it some other ways occasionally. So on the note of against the spread, I mentioned in the intro, the last 7 weeks, I've only got one wrong, and it was the Chargers. So go figure, just crapping all over everything we do. So that's the Charger thing to do. This week, I have the Eagles at minus 11.5 at home against the Giants. So the Eagles, they need some kind of weight off their shoulders, and this is gonna. I think this is gonna be like a 40-0 blowout by the Eagles this week. So I will be having some money thrown their way this week. Meg, who do you have?
who do I have? I have Green Bay -5 against the Panthers. I think you said a couple times this season the Panthers are due for one more win. They got that other win. I think they're done doing that.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so I do like the Packers to cover. I think Jordan Love has another one of his games like he had the last a few weeks ago, kind of, puts himself back on the right track. So I like the Packers this week.
Yeah, if they could just find a way to shut down Jonathan Mingo, they got the game in hand. What do you have, Pettit?
I've got the Browns -2.5 versus the Texans. I actually don't know if they're home or away. I should write that. But I think Case Keenum's starting again, which he looked all right, but the Browns defense is smothering. So I think the Browns should hold the Texans to not very many points.
Yeah, that's a good point too. It's trending like Keenum is going to play, and whenever they make that official announcement, that spread's probably going to jump up to like -3.5, -4.5. So now's a good time to jump all over it. Even if it is 4.5, they'll probably still cover that one. Moving along to teasers. So Meg and Pettit typically do a 3-team 6-point tease, but I normally take it a step further because this is kind of my niche. I've been doing this for a long time. So I have a primetime tease, which is typically a 10-point tease, but this time there's just 3 games I really loved on primetime that I did alt lines instead. So if you take the Bills at -2.5, the Eagles at -6.5, and the Chiefs at -2.5, parlay those together, it's +102 odds. That is what I will be doing this week. I didn't put it in yet. Just I think that's a surefire lock. So the Bills, I don't have numbers to support it. So I have a friend who deemed himself the wizard for betting. He just throws out these stupid stats. Let me see if I can find his right now on why the I'll look for it later. Anyway, so it's something along the lines of if a team gets blown out by more than 20 and then they're at home and the spread's more than 10, they cover 90%. That doesn't matter. The Bills are heating up. They're going to win that game. The Eagles are -6.5. The Eagles won 12 of their last 14 games in this matchup. Their last 4 wins were by 31 points, 6 points, 26 points, and 24 points. So they blow out the Giants with the exception of 1 time, and they win against the Giants with the exception of 2 times. So it seems to be a surefire lock. The Chiefs at -2.5 against the Raiders. The Chiefs won 11 of their last 12 matchups. All but one of them, they won by more than a field goal. So 10 of the 12 they would have covered in this scenario, and most were blowouts. And I think the Chiefs are, yeah, they put up 27, but it was against the Patriots. But I mentioned earlier that they're scoring 30 plus points a game against the Raiders, so it should be an easy win for the Chiefs. So that's my primetime bet and my bet of the week, really. On day, I did a 10-point tease, so that's a minus 120 odds. I have the Lions over of 36.5. I have the Packers at plus 4.5 or plus 5, depending on where you get it. And then I have the Titans at plus 12.5. So when you look at the Titans at plus 12.5, that would cover 11 out of 14 games for the Titans, and that spread would have won 13 out of 14 against the Seahawks. The Titans only have 2 losses at home, and both those losses were by 3 points. So I don't like going against the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks win this game, but I think it's an easier bet to have the Titans teased up to that. The Packers, I do believe that they're going to win this game against the Panthers. I don't think the Panthers have a chance. But if you do take the Packers at plus 4.5, you would be undefeated against the Panthers. So the Panthers have not beat anyone by more than 4 all year. It would be 11-3 for the Packers as well. And then you got Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. They're starting to be healthy. So you have that two-headed running back field. I don't even know this word, but they're healthy. At this point, I'm getting that. And then lastly, the Lions over. The last 6 times these two teams met, the totals were 57, 52, 56, 36, 72, and 54. So I do trust in Nick Mullins to put up points. I also trust in Nick Mullins to turn over the ball, which could result in more points for Lions. In any case, I think it's an easy cover for Lions over. That is what I have for mine. Mig, what do you have for your teaser?
I have a 3-team 6-point teaser. So I teased the Bills over the Chargers down to -6. Teased the Commanders to -3 against the Jets. And the Bengals +4 over the Steelers. Don't really have great feelings about any of them, but yeah, I mean the Bills I like a lot. -6. I think they're going to blow the Chargers out. They've been looking pretty great here. I think the Jets are going to struggle on offense regardless of who plays a quarterback. So that's the only reason why I'm going with the Commanders there. And I wonder, I think I may have messed up my lines. I'll have to look here, but I do like the Commanders over the Jets. And unfortunately, I do like the Cincinnati Bengals at +4 over the Steelers. So just looking at each matchup, I like each team to win. So just put some numbers in my favor. What about you, Pettit?
I've got the Bills as well. He's down to -6 versus the Chargers. I got the Packers +1 versus the Panthers, and the Browns +3.5 versus the Texans.
All right, so it looks like we're all on the Browns this week. I just took my spread down a little bit too far, but we'll lock in we'll lock in the Bills there. We'll put it at the -6 because I think they'll cover that as well. With that being said, if you follow our teasers, if you follow the ones I put out, you'd be up 802% and Pettit 520%. I'm not going to read Migs off because you would not be up, but we'll read Migs off when we get the prop bets. That's his specialty. So moving on to our next specialty, it's props, and our touchdown score of the week. Someone that we like to consider is Sixy, and you know it. Pettit, Mig, I gotta raise you up after putting you down on the teaser. So what do you have?
No,
for your
that's fine.
props?
You want me to start with props or my touchdown score?
Whatever you prefer.
Let's
I
go
believe
with
you're leading in
props.
both. Yeah, you're leading in both.
Let's go with props. So there is one prop that I think is a slam dunk this week that I found. It's +180. It's Cooper Kupp over 59.5 yards and to score a touchdown. I feel very confident in that. We've talked about earlier. He's been on kind of a tear. I expect that to continue. I do have another prop this week. And this might be my favorite prop that I've put in. in the history of this podcast, and it is anytime touchdown score. It's not my 60 pick of the week, but anytime touchdown score, Boston Scott plus 400.
Oh, is it the
There's the
game?
backs. It is the game. Eagles Giants. So Boston Scott has 16 career touchdowns in 8 games against the Giants. He has 86 carries for 414 yards and 10 touchdowns. Boston Scott does nothing but score against the Giants. And I see no reason why that doesn't continue this week. So for plus 400, you can get Boston Scott for an anytime touchdown score. And I like it a lot this week. So
I gotta
toss
do
it
that.
in.
Yeah, I like that too.
What about your props? Got it.
Oh, so my prop is Mason Rudolph over 0.5 interceptions and Jake Browning over 0.5 interceptions for plus 192. So they both need to throw interception. It's plus 192.
I like it. I did that one game too, and it hit. So yeah, I think it was a Steeler game too, to be honest. Do you have any other props?
Nope, just the one.
I have two. I have the Chiefs to score over 30.5 points, judging by what I said earlier. That's plus 195. And then I have James Cook over 23.5 yards receiving. So the Chargers are giving up the second most receiving yards to running backs, and James Cook is on an absolute heater right now, and I'm hoping that continues. For my touchdown scorer of the week, I'm sticking with the same game. I have Stephon Diggs at plus 145. So you probably wouldn't see Stephon Diggs at plus 145, I don't know, in the first 7 or 8 weeks of the season. But yeah, he's in a drought, and the Chargers are a perfect team to break that drought against. So I have Diggs at plus 145. Pettit, who do you have for your touchdown score?
So I've got Tyler Boyd for plus 285. So Jamar Chase is out, and I think Boyd always plays the Steelers well, being a Pittsburgh alum.
Clareton
So
boy.
yeah, and he's really good. They just don't use him at all when all the players are healthy. But anytime one of them goes out, he seems to really pick up the slack. So Tyler Boyd plus 285.
So for my touchdown score of the week, we never really are able to give a lot of love to the Thursday night game because we usually record on Thursday. So I'm going with Alvin Kamara at plus 120. He's been good this year a lot. I think still eating up a ton of catches each game. And I do like him against the Rams defense tomorrow night. So Alvin Kamara.
All right, that wraps it up. If you tailed that wraps that section up. If you tail us, Miggs up 500 in touchdown score of the weeks, and he's also up 949 in props. Put those together, you're looking at over almost $1,500 if you put $100 in everything Miggs says. So he's the leader of the pack when it comes to those two categories right there. Which brings us over to our next section, long shot parlay, where the rules are simple. We have to put a parlay in that's over plus 500 odds. Right now, Pettit's the leader in that. So why don't you kick us off, Pettit, with your long shot?
Am I positive?
I plead the fifth.
I'm gonna go to the Thursday game like Mig. So catch us tomorrow on Wednesday or Thursday before the game Thursday. But anyway, so I got anytime touchdown scorer, Kamara, Cup, and Kyron Williams. So I agree with what makes it with Kamara. I think, he gets red zone looks and whatnot. And Cup, we've talked about him, and Kyron just on a tear too. It might be like the third best running back in football. So that's plus 738. What do you got, Mig?
I like this one a lot too. So I went with our running quarterback friends. I parlayed an anytime touchdown score bet with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts all to score a rushing touchdown for plus 901.
Oh,
You're crazy.
I know, but I like all their matchups
I like
this
you.
week. But you're crazy.
But you're
man.
crazy.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. Get the quarterbacks involved. I think Bills are going to score. I don't know. They might score 60. They might score 10 too. I don't know. But um, yeah, I like Josh Allen to run one in, and Lamar. I think that's going to be a great game on Christmas Day, and he's going to have to be a big part of that since they lost Keaton Mitchell, and they're back to losing good, talented, explosive running backs. And then Jalen Hurts seems like he has more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns, with another 2 rushing touchdowns last week. So I liked it. But plus 901, can't beat those odds.
And
Yeah.
before you go, Dadig, I think we didn't really touch on the just the Ravens 49ers game in general. I feel like it's why I was looking at the schedules, like I can't believe the like the most highly potential Super Bowl teams are playing each other this late in the season in different divisions.
And we didn't mention it once.
Yeah. And I also couldn't believe the line I saw earlier was 49ers minus 5.5. I feel like they ain't respecting the Ravens much at all.
Yeah, the Ravens
Yeah.
just they win games. It seems like they win them ugly too, where the 49ers are just steamrolling teams lately. That probably has something to do with it. And, that's just one of those games I avoid altogether because like my gut tells me the 49ers win, but the Ravens are just so tough. I don't know what to think of that game. It could end at 13-10 Ravens for all I know.
Right. And I think if like even Mark Andrews were in the lineup, that line could change a little bit because he's obviously, Lamar's biggest weapon down the field. But yeah, I mean, I think they're correct to favor the Niners. The spread is a little surprising, but yeah, you never know what the Ravens are going to do. They're kind of still one of those wild card teams. Um, but they've just been on the winning end of it more times than not this year. But should be a real good one.
Now, may I say my long shot?
So Parker Washington.
Can you trust them?
Parker Washington,
Yeah,
Jonathan
sorry.
Mingo, anytime touchdowns.
Oh my
I'm
god.
done.
That'd be
I'm done
plus
busting you for now.
plus 9,000 at least. You should put that in.
I went with a low risk one here. I went Packers -5, Eagles -11.5, and the Buccaneers over at 42 for plus 589. So I think that Buccaneers over jumps up 6 points if they announce Trevor Lawrence as a starter. So to lock it in at 42 seems easy. And I mentioned earlier, I agree with your guys' pick on the Packers there. So it's only plus 589, but that would put me even money for the long shots. That rolls us over to our next section, underdog pick of the week, where we have to choose one team that has plus odds and we pick them to outright win. Right now, I'm leading the pack with that with 6 wins and 8 losses. So I'll start with my pick this week. We mentioned this team several times throughout the podcast, especially during the listener question of the week, his 9-question version. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers to beat the Bengals. Uh, I'm a Tomlin believer. I think I'm in the minority here of Tomlin believers, but I don't think he loses 4 in a row. Steelers are a tough team. They're a tough organization. I don't think Mason Rudolph's the answer by any means. But against a division rival, anything could happen. And in Pittsburgh, I think I think we got the Bengals this week. So that's my underdog pick of the week is the Steelers. How about you, Mig?
So I've been, I know, pretty contradictory on this game. I think it's going to be ugly, but I have the Commanders +3 over the Jets. So I think the Jets are going to struggle to move the ball, especially if Simeon's their quarterback. So I'm just banking on Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett and company to make something happen. So I like the commies this week. Pettit.
I got the Colts +1 over the Falcons. So I think the Colts are just a way better team than the Falcons. It's kind of wild that the Colts are plus odds here. So I think the Colts should win
That
comfortably.
fear of
Is,
Taylor Heineke.
Is Pittman going to play?
That's a good question.
I know they're
didn't
getting
look into
Jonathan
that.
Taylor back, but he's listed as questionable, and I haven't really read up on him. After he got walloped last week by the Monte KZ.
That's a good point. If he doesn't play, you got to. It's probably a lot of fantasy value in the other wide receivers on their team for daily fantasy. Downs and
Josh Downs, Alec Pierce. Yeah, but there hasn't really been a lot of talk about Pittman. I just saw he's listed as questionable, so
There's
seems to me
limited
there's an outside
practice.
chance. Yeah, which I mean, if he's cleared to go to practice at all, it means there's no concussion issues,
And they
or
should
anything
lift the
like that.
suspension.
So, right.
I just saw an update that I think he appealed or something, but they upheld it. So they're sticking to their guns.
Yeah, it's interesting. It didn't look good. The eye test says, yeah, he should be suspended for the rest of the year, but old Tom Brady coming to the defense's defense, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, saying quarterbacks have to put their receivers in better positions to catch the ball, and defenders have limited time to make a decision. So, but yeah, I mean, the hit didn't look good by any stretch. Yeah, the rest of the year seems to be a bit aggressive for a suspension, but we can move on.
And move on to garbage time, which is reserved for us to talk about anything and everything we want to. It doesn't have to be sports, but oftentimes it is. So Pettit, you kind of left me with a cliffhanger last week. You said you had a garbage time lined up. You made me delete it from your answers. So I need to know, what did I delete? What is your garbage time this week?
I just thought of something. You forgot to say we're recording and we're all on camera in the beginning. You should go back and add that later, or whatever.
Okay. You mean like in the intro, say, hey, this is a live recording?
I mean, just the YouTube part I'm talking about, because we didn't say anything about us. Are we doing YouTube this time? Are you recording video?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I've been, yep.
Yeah. So you didn't mention that in the beginning, right?
Well, no, I didn't.
Why? Why? Why are you acting like this isn't a good point I'm making here, Dadig?
No, it is a good point. I'm
They're
just
just going to assume
disappointed
we're
that,
on YouTube.
no, I'm just disappointed I overlooked that. That's all.
Okay, good.
Good. I'm glad I beat you down with your DFS lineup and now with your intro. So,
All right, so enjoy editing this, and also I got another game of trivia for you guys.
Oh,
So
okay.
same as last time. You both get 5 picks, and Mig gets the first pick this time. So what we're doing now is NFL most wins since 2010. So last 13 years. So if you pick the
13.
God damn it. If you pick the if you pick the number 1 team, you get 10 points. If you pick the number 10 team, you get 1 point. Anything other than that, you get 0 points. So snake draft, you're on the clock, Meg.
So this is since when? Since 2010, you said?
Since 2010, yeah.
Oh boy.
Which is pretty much all of our memories.
Yeah.
Even though Dating's old, he probably can't remember farther than that.
So I'm going to say the New England Patriots.
It's a good pick. They are number 1. That's 10 points. You get 2 picks, or Dating.
Well, he took mine. I'll go with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
They're number 4, so that's 6 points.
And the
Oh, never mind.
Green
That's
Bay
7 points.
and the Green Bay Packers.
I think is that 7 points? If you
If
pick the
it- if they're
4th best team, 10, 9, 8, 10, 9, 8, yeah, 7. You get 7 points. Okay, and the Packers are
yeah,
3rd. So that's 8 points. Those are some good picks.
So number 2 still out there. So I get 2 now, right?
Yeah, that's actually surprised about number 2.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be some weird team in there. I don't know. My memory's just terrible. So let me think. Who's been good? Let's say recency bias, but Kansas City Chiefs.
They're number 2.
Okay.
Wow, I did not think they would be.
Yeah, me
Yeah, I
neither. But I
didn't.
guess they were good for a long time, even before
They
Mahomes
were,
and Alex Smith. They're always feisty.
yeah, the Jamal Charles years.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kansas City, and then it's 2010. There's a team that keeps coming into my head, and I just refuse to say it.
Say
I
it.
got one of those too.
I'm not going to say it. I kind of want to say it. No, I'm not going to say it.
Say it.
Say it.
Chargers.
Oh,
That
Nope.
can't be one. All right.
they're
Good.
17, 14, 15. They're 17th. So they did you
Okay.
dirty again, Mig.
And you
Yeah.
said Chargers.
Well, I was
Nice.
just thinking like
That-
the
it's a
Philip
good
Rivers
guess.
years. They
Well,
they-
remember they were first in offense and defense and missed the
yeah,
playoffs.
that's what I was thinking. They always had a good offense, and they won games, and they just shit the bed. So okay, well that was a dud.
Avoid some zeros. You got a chance here, Dadig.
I'm gonna go with the Colts.
Colts are not on the list either.
Ah, damn.
That's a good guess, though. It's a good
I figure
guess.
Peyton Manning, then Andrew
Post
Luck.
Peyton, Andrew Luck. Yeah,
Seahawks.
Seahawks are 6th. So that's 4 points. So you're both tied right now. And Mig's got 2 picks left and Dadig's got 1.
Probably got one pick left. Damn it.
okay. So I'm going to say the Baltimore Ravens.
They are number 5. That's 6 points. This is the pick that matters right here.
Dallas Cowboys.
Cowboys are 8. That's 3 points. So you got 45, 26, 7, 28 points, and Dadig's got 19. So I don't think he can do it here.
Well, then I'll just throw this one out there. The Giants.
The Giants are
I can't wait for our viewers to see this face.
I don't even see the Giants on this list at all. Where are they hiding at?
They have to. I mean, they made it to 2 Super Bowls during that time.
Nah, they didn't start keeping track until Tommy DeVito came in.
Yeah, they're not even on this list.
All right. I call shenanigans. It's systems rigged.
Maybe I took the screenshot, didn't include the bottom teams.
Or maybe you cut off the top and they're actually number 1 and I won the game. So thank you. Well,
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I think it's just not on the list because they're so bad, maybe.
So what teams in the top 10 are left that weren't picked?
So it goes 1 Pats, 2 Chiefs, 3 Packers, 4 Steelers, 5 Ravens. Did anybody pick the Ravens?
I did.
You did.
did,
6
yeah.
was the Saints.
Saints,
I
Drew Brees.
I had the Saints on my list. I had the Rams on my list too.
7 was Seahawks, 8 Cowboys, 9 Eagles, 10 49ers.
So we didn't say the Eagles and Niners.
Yeah.
I Googled that list and the Giants are 27th. So
The Buccaneers. Are they 26?
Buccaneers, they're tied for 24th.
Okay, that's for the end of my screen grab. So yeah, you just picked a team that I didn't even care to include in the top.
Was it even worth it on the screenshot? No, I do
No.
like your logic, but I think the Giants made the playoffs that year. Like both years, they were like
8-8. They're six
It
seed
was
and
like
yeah.
9-7, and then 11-5 or something, because they were
Yeah,
never favored in
I
any
didn't
of
think
those
about
years.
that. I just thought about them beating the undefeated Patriots. That's all I could think about.
Yeah, I should have mentioned this didn't include playoff wins, but I don't think either of you thought about that. So Meg is 2-0 in trivia.
I'll get you next week.
Mhm.
Uh, Meg, what do you have for your garbage time?
Oh, so keeping with the Christmas spirit, since this will be our last episode before the Christmas holiday. Um, Back when getting Christmas gifts was a big deal when you were a kid, what was your favorite gift?
Ooh, hoo, hoo. Crap.
I don't know. I miss the days where you got like a $10 toy and you're like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Now you could win like a decent amount of money and you just be like, okay, cool. I could just bet this all away even harder now. Oh, mine
Ah,
was probably an N64. That was it was like when I first started to play games, and that console has a lot of my greatest hits. So I'm gonna go N64. What kind
I
of gun
gotta,
is yours, Stadig?
I gotta, I didn't get a gun until I was like 18 or something. But uh, I I believe this was a Christmas gift, and it was NFL Street. So have you ever played NFL Street?
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
didn't
was
like those
incredible.
games.
It's way better than any other NFL game. And we still like when our family gets together for Thanksgiving, Christmas, someone always brings a PlayStation 1 and we have an NFL Street tournament. So it's just a gift that keeps on giving. That'll have to be mine. There's like we know the hidden gem play like Charles Gardner in that game is a stud. He's not rated very high, but if you have him on your team, you won't lose.
Who's
We
Charles
call it
Gardner?
Garner. He was a running back for the Raiders back in the NFL Street days.
Mm.
We call it a street factor. So they might not have high ratings, but if you have them on your team, you have the street factor and you automatically win. How about you, Mig?
I I'm kind of going back and forth in between two because I can't remember when I received this one gift. I don't think it was Christmas, but I think it might have been. So I'm going to say I got my first guitar. I was, I think, 12 years old. Had no idea what was coming. I always wanted to, learn how to play. I hadn't up
Slapping the
until that
bass.
point. Yeah. Yeah. So I think when I was 12, I got my first guitar. It was I don't even remember the brand. It was a knockoff. It was black acoustic guitar. I like that one. The one I don't remember when I got it was PlayStation 1. Um, so I had every gaming system growing up, but the PlayStation 1 was like huge deal. Got it with Crash Bandicoot, and I probably put as many hours into that game as I have and pretty much any other game. So yeah, but I may not have gotten that for Christmas. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm old. I can't remember anything anymore.
We could be more appreciative, I guess.
Right. So dating, what do we have?
All right. So as you're aware, every week I cast an NFL character as a DC NFL personality as a DC character. So this week we're gonna place what NFL personality is Batman. So if you don't know who Batman is, uh, climb out of your hole and watch television. So Meg, who do you have as Batman?
So I looked at this a couple different ways. The first way was who fits the bill of the description of Batman. And I kind of didn't really take into consideration the whole Bruce Wayne side of it, because this guy will never be a Bruce Wayne. And the second way I looked at it was who would be the funniest in the video. And I think I hit the nail on the head with this. So um, this guy's a little bit of an unsung hero. I think he protected every NFL fan other than those outside of the Boston area for on two separate occasions. Um, and the Batman for me is Eli Manning. Protected the NFL from two more Super Bowls with Tom Brady. Flew into the night out of nowhere, never saw him coming, beat the undefeated juggernaut. and then flew back into the night, and you didn't really hear from him again other than, 2 years later when they beat him again. So yeah, I went with Eli Manning as Batman.
I actually like that a lot. How about you, Pettit?
So I googled what's Batman like, and he says he's extremely pessimistic and suspicious, which is often difficult, makes it
This
difficult to trust people.
must be a
And
Justice League Batman.
um, so I'm going Arthur Smith as Batman.
Oh,
So he's suspicious of using his high capital for top 10 picks on offense or in the red zone. He's pessimistic about the fantasy community, and he's extremely rich, like Bruce Wayne. So he actually might be Batman.
Actually, like spending too much time fighting crime instead of scheming up an offense. But I kind of focused in on the Bruce Wayne side of things. So when you think about Bruce Wayne, he had a mask that he's Batman. So how did he do that? He gave to a bunch of orphanages. He did a bunch of fundraisers, raised a bunch of money, and things of that nature. That was by day, and then by night, he was a complete savage, taking down the worst criminals. So by day, JJ Watt has gave 7 million to schools, 41 million to Hurricane Harvey. He was a 2017 Walter Payton Man of the Year, and then primetime games. If you look at JJ Watt, he's a complete savage that just destroys his opponents. So JJ Watt's my Batman. You guys have anything else good for the cause?
I don't. Best of luck to everybody in fantasy playoffs, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Yep.
Well, before I give the closing, I would like the listeners to know that this will also be posted on YouTube, Pettit. So that wraps up our show today. If you enjoyed the show, we made you money, or you have a pulse, please click the listener support button found on the Twitter profile information or on Spotify to help us grow our platform. Next week, we give you week 17 fantasy advice, winning DFS lineups, and betting locks. You can find us on Twitter at Just 3 Dads. Lineups, locks, and loot out.